Welcome, everyone, to Beyond Surviving, the safe space for survivors of childhood sexual abuse to receive support, resources, and share their stories. Beyond Surviving is about freedom, healing, connection, and even laughter and fun. Most importantly, it's about letting go of the pain of abuse and finally moving on. You can learn more about me and the Beyond Surviving program at rachelgrantcoaching.com. Now, here with me today, y'all, is just an amazing person. I have known Ingrid for a while, and I've been tracking and following her journey. And today, Miss Ingrid Abild-Pedersen and I are coming together to talk about navigating the field of medicine. So when we're going to doctor's appointments, when we're working with medical professionals, when we're dealing with the mental health field and industry, and I think we're going to talk quite a bit about how this industry sometimes overlooks sexual trauma in general, and really misses the boat. So Ingrid's going to be sharing some of her personal journey, but also some of the insights that she's gained from working and teaching, working with and teaching medical students about the connection between trauma and physical symptoms. So Ingrid is an author, a speaker, and the owner and founder of Abild-Pedersen Coaching. She's a certified professional coach and an energy leadership index master practitioner. So that's a mouthful. We might have to hear a little more about what that is and what that means. She has lived in Denmark and Germany and England. Now she's hanging out in Menlo Park, California. It's cool. It's not England, but it's cool. And I'm really just so glad to have you here with me today, Ingrid. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Oh my goodness, what an introduction. I'm like all blushing here. So
good.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I've been excited to do this.
Yeah, well, it's been a long time coming. I can't even remember exactly when we met, but I want to say it was at least 5 years ago. Is that right, do you think?
Yeah, at least, yeah. Maybe even more, yeah.
And take us back to that time, because you were in a very different place in your life when we first met. Tell us a little bit about what was going on for you then.
Yeah, oh my goodness, that's many years ago. So I think that was in 2014-15. I had just started my business and I was looking into what do other coaches do, and your name came up and you were kind of a mentor for me. So I remember we met and you were telling me all about, how you started yours, and I was so grateful. And I've been following you, Rachel. So no, that was awesome. So I was very new and I had no clue what I was doing, actually. I was like, oh, wow.
Well, that's all of us in the beginning. We're like, wait, what? What's going on?
Yeah, but I knew I had this purpose inside me. I knew I had my story. I had my why I'm doing this, and I wanted to help other people. So I just jumped out and did it and just followed one step at a time. And it's just organically just evolved into me having my business now, being an author, and I just love it. It's fantastic.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about the work that you are doing these days.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I didn't really know what my niche was, and I was just coaching everybody. But it's interesting how universe works. So it's been, going in different fields, but the people I attract are people who has had some, similar stories than me, similar journeys. And often my clients have been seeing a therapist for many years, but need help to get out of the system. Need a help to find themselves again and not seeing themselves as broken or feeling like a victim. And that's exactly the journey I've done. So it's so interesting how that works.
Right.
Yeah, people who's been through abuse and things like that, trauma, eating disorders, things like that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this idea of the mental health system and even the medical professional system. So it's a really important and interesting word to use. What do you mean by that? Can you expand on that a little bit?
So the mental health system is, I got to know it very well through my eating disorder. Went through, support groups, bulimia treatment, therapists, different stages in my life. But also then the medical field, because what happened to me was my trauma was actually, it's manifested as physical symptoms. And I did not know that at that time. Right. So I went to the doctor with these weird symptoms, and they were only looking at the physical symptoms. And so it took many, many years before I actually found out that they were all connected. And that's also why I wrote my book, because I want to share, I want to bring more awareness that that those things are connected. And I see many, also my clients, go with many physical symptoms, but then we realize, wow, it's actually connected. And when you start healing the mental side of it, the physical symptoms disappear. Yes. And that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it's such a tricky thing, because there are two things happening here from what I see from what you shared. One, we have the person who's having the experience, right? And they themselves may not know that there is a connection between what they're experiencing and the trauma. And then we have medical professionals, and sometimes even mental health professionals who don't connect those dots for someone. And then I think there's a third category of people who are experiencing symptoms, have a sense and awareness that it is related to trauma, but may not know how to talk about that, how to bring that up, or even if they do, it gets dismissed and kind of shoved aside.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, I saw it myself, and every time I brought up, could it be related? You know, they don't know. You know, we need to look at the facts. And you can't really measure the physical, the mental side of it. You can't really measure it that much, and the trauma, but if the MRI looks normal, it looks normal. But you can still have trauma related things. And the problem is, when you go and you've been through a lot, you don't want to hear, oh, it's all normal. It must be,
right.
And you sit there like, oh, wow, listen, please take it serious, right? So that in itself can really knock you down.
Agreed. Yeah, it can feel really disheartening, because if people are just kind of saying, well, I don't see any reason why you should be feeling that way or having that problem or experiencing that, then that can be, I mean, I've had some clients who are like, I just felt crazy out of my mind. Like, oh my gosh, I must be hallucinating, or I must be like making this up, or something there, which of course, if we're talking about somebody who's experienced childhood sexual trauma, there's already so much self-invalidation and often feeling like, I don't know if I can trust myself or I can count on myself. And so those messages from people who we tend to be conditioned to look up to kind of almost sometimes respect without question their opinions, their ideas, their conclusions, can just be even more like debilitating. And there's another word that I'm trying to get to, but it's not coming to mind.
There's also the other side of it. So you sit there, and then the easy part is you just get some medication. Right. So that will just numb it even more. You will never really get to the root of what's really going on. So that means you can go for many, many years taking medication and feel sick, instead of healing and become a person again. So there is so much of this. It's the easy part. Oh, you must, take this medication, it will help you. Instead of trying to figure out, or in the mental health field, oh, this support group will help you. Oh, then this one. Or, I remember when I finished the PTSD treatment I did, and I sat the last day in the group, there was this other woman as well, and she had her last day too. And we looked at each other, and she said, what am I going to do now? Should I just go home and wait for my next depression? And we were laughing, but we were very seriously. And that's why I also decided to become a coach, because I said, there must be something else that can help me get back to normal and not just sit and wait for my next diagnosis. I don't want to be my diagnosis. I've used it as an excuse for so many years. I want to go back to life.
Cheers to that. Well, I'm a fan of that. We're all about that here. Yeah. Amazing. So I definitely want to talk more about what you did that ultimately supported you in your healing. But before we jump into that, I want to just see if we can do a little brainstorming around like what are some of the common symptoms that will present that might actually be tied to trauma. Now, I know this is a long, broad list. It could be different for everyone, but I think it could be helpful for our listeners to just have a little bit of a sense of like, hey, oftentimes these kinds of symptoms will have an underlying root cause of trauma.
I mean, there are all the stress symptoms because you are living in fight and flight. So, racing heart, all of that, it's often also in your stomach or headaches, or you just tense, or your chest is tight. But the thing is, your body is trying to kind of talk to you.
Yes.
And if you're not listening, it will scream louder and louder. And I wasn't listening. I didn't know what was going on. So by the end of the day, when I had my second child, I started getting really sick. And for me, those symptoms screamed as every time I fell asleep, something happened that when I woke up, my left side was kind of numb. I couldn't open my left eye. And it was really weird. And I didn't know what it was. And it just got worse and worse. And it took a long time before I could function as a normal person. It was weird. I was awake, but I was as well numb. And it was really weird. But for every person, it's different. But what I'm saying is listen to your body.
Right.
And if you're not listening, it will scream louder and louder.
I just did this meditation this morning from the Calm app. I'm forgetting Mel, maybe, or it might be Mel May. Gosh, terrible. I'm so sorry. The person was who leads these morning movements. They're like 7 minutes. It's a great way to start the day. Just kind of, and then today the invitation was to just stand still. First of all, just be in stillness, because a lot of times we don't notice what's happening in our body because we are pushing through and we got to do the next thing and get on over there and pick up the kids, make the dinner, do whatever it is. Just standing still and then doing a body scan. And then just noticing. She used the analogy of, when we take a call, when something's not working in the car, like the check engine light comes on, the dreaded check engine light, dun, dun, dun. And like, that's the cue, the signal. Hey, something needs to be checked up. Something needs to be tuned up. And that, oftentimes we have these check engine lights going off in our body, but we're bypassing it. We're ignoring it. So just that moment of kind of slowing down and noticing, oh yeah, like there's a little tweak in my back, or, oh gosh, yeah, there's a lot of tension in my shoulders, right? Is a place to then say, oh yeah, I need to tune into that and pay attention to what's going on there.
It's so important. I also see, and I know that with myself also, many times when you grew up with things like trauma, abuse, and so you have this mask on you. And even if people say, oh, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. But, and it's like, we believe it, but to take, and that's why often clients have a really hard time actually taking that time to sit still because they're so used to, no, I can't. And the body will react. Often my clients get sick first because the body is screaming, no, don't relax. You keep going because you want to protect. But it's really important to push through that and really try to be still and see what's really going on. But we're so used to being in the hamster wheel and also we don't want to feel the uncomfortable things.
Sure, right. I mean, and also, I mean, I think I hear, maybe I've done this in my own life. I'm trying to think if an example comes to mind. Nothing's popping right into my mind, but I've definitely heard from clients the sentiment of, I want it to be something physical, right? Like, I don't want it to be tied to all this. I've been doing a very good job of pushing that trauma away and like trying to avoid it, not talk about it, right? So now when I come in to talk with you about my sleep disorder or this, irritable gut or whatever it is, like in some ways there's this thing happening in which there's like, I'm happy to be fooled. And then the medical professional is like, I don't want to touch it either. Like, I don't know, and so they're all just like, okay. Let's just, say it's just this, or nothing's wrong, or throw some medicine at it. And so, yeah, I think there's a place that we're acknowledging that it's vulnerable. It can be scary.
Mhm.
But it's ultimately so, so necessary, because tell us a little bit about what shifted and changed for you physically when you began to address the underlying trauma.
Yeah, so I mean, oh, many times in my life, also when I started bulimia treatment, I, I learned to really check in, and so, but it still wasn't where I felt, I felt safe. But the thing was, with my trauma, I didn't remember it. Many people remember the trauma. For me, I started having a first flashback in 2011 of some trauma from old stuff. I had not, but my body remembered. So my body had made me sick and tried to kind of, so even though I had been seeing a therapist for many years, I dealt with other things, but this was something I didn't know. And so when it came up, it was a shock. And but my body had really tried to share, okay, Ingrid, it's time for the next layer of the onion. Come on, come on. So when I did the PTSD treatment, and I really, learned to ground myself, even though the flashbacks came, and it was, I needed to push through and feel the uncomfortable. But the amazing thing was that, after, I mean, it took a while, it took many, many months to really push through that. And in the healing, it's still going on, right? I mean, I think it comes and goes. But I learned to sit with and accept it. And then I could go and forgive. I could, all the emotions. But I think the most important thing is to accept these emotions are normal. Because all my life I had been this, oh, Miss Sunshine, and I didn't want to feel it. And I didn't want to go there. And I didn't know what it was I didn't want to feel. But I just knew I was taught to be a little Miss Sunshine and make everybody else happy. So for me to feel, it was selfish in a way. So no, I better rather take care of everybody else. But it was my time, and I needed that. And I should have had that for many years ago, but I just wasn't ready. But the earlier we learn, and I think in schools they should teach that,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Help yourself, like in the airport, help yourself before you help others. Daily check-ins, really figuring out what's going on, and be allowed to feel also anger and sadness and disappointment. These are normal feelings.
I love that. What I'm taking away from what you just shared there is that in the process of healing, that you began to have more vitality and energy and capacity, even to just feel your feelings, and also to show up in the world as yourself, which is one of the reasons why I love this title of your book, Unmasked. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a bit more about how people can advocate for themselves in, the mental health medical world. And then let's talk more about your book. Yeah. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Thanks.
When you're all talked out and just want to know what the hell you need to do to actually break free from the pain of abuse, my Beyond Surviving Basics, a no BS guide to healing your childhood trauma 5-day video course is your best next step. 5 days, 5 lessons, 5 ways to kick PTSD to the curb. If you are ready to break free from false beliefs and triggers, onboard no BS strategies for squashing PTSD, get off the emotional roller coaster and take action to take back your life, then please go to rachelgrantcoaching.com/broken-to-beyond and join the course today. Now, back to our show. Welcome back, everyone. I am here with Ingrid, and we are continuing our conversation about how to avoid being overlooked in the medical world, and how to really advocate for ourselves. So what have you found to be some of the best things that people can do, maybe to prepare before going to see a medical professional within the container or the context of a conversation with them? What are some of your pro tips?
I mean, every journey is different, but I think what we can do is, first of all, being honest with ourselves, and also being critical to what we are told. It's really important to find if it's a therapist or a doctor that suits you. There are so many out there, and it's not everybody who is a good fit for you.
Yeah.
So if you go in somewhere and you're vulnerable anyway, you don't want to feel judged. You don't want to feel they don't listen. You don't want to feel overlooked. And it's okay to request another one. I think most of all, trust yourself, trust your instinct. And because you cannot heal if you don't trust the person, or if you constantly feel, oh, they don't like me, or they don't believe me, or, so it's really, that's the first thing, really being honest with yourself and not be scared to say, can I try something else? Can I try a different one? It's okay. These are people too, and it's not for everybody. So that's one thing. The other thing is also start, we believe in them, everything they're saying, but just because they have read things in books and they know exactly we people, I never fitted the box in everything. And these are, we try to, everywhere we try to make things as easy, and it's nice if we can measure and we can put people in boxes, but it just doesn't work every time. And it's really important to also be okay with that, and not say, and maybe say, what else is there?
I love that.
Yeah.
I think the permission that you've given yourself and that you're inviting others to give themselves is to ask questions, to not face value. If you're not pleased or satisfied with the service, the support that you're getting, to speak up about that. And if you don't get, attunement to that, you can go somewhere else. And I know, like, when you've started with a mental health professional, that it can feel like, oh gosh, now I got to start all over and I got to tell the whole story again. But actually, no, you don't. Even if somebody asks you to do a whole inventory or intake, you don't have to do that, and but you can, but it's worth it at the end of the day to make sure that you get connected in with the right mentor, guide, coach, therapist, and medical professional to support you.
And sometimes it's actually refreshing because everywhere you are on your journey, you don't need the same therapist for 10, 20 years. It's always good to get a new, because otherwise it gets too comfortable. It gets like it's like a friend I meet every week or every second week. No, you want to heal. You don't want to feel too comfortable. And the same in support groups. It might be nice to see, they understand me. And I had the same, this maybe the first time ever anybody understands, and I see there other people that has the same feelings and thoughts, but you don't want to sit there forever.
If you're not continuing to be kind of stretched or challenged, if it just becomes like a session where you're just kind of like bemoaning the things in your life, or you're just kind of reiterating or repeating the same things over and over again, if it's not propelling you towards ongoing change, then switch it up. I love that.
I think the system can be better at that, and see, okay, you're actually really, you're ready to move on or challenge us a bit more. It's not just because we have so focused on the healing. The problem is we feel broken, we feel sick, we feel, I maybe not be able to work again, or I may be not, because we're constantly, I'm not, I use my diagnose a lot. I said, I can't do that because I have my eating disorder, or I have my PTSD. But we need some pep talker say, hey, you got this, try to challenge yourself a little bit more. There's a whole world out there, right? Start dreaming again, right?
I love that. One of my clients has a little cheat sheet that she's developed that I just love. And, before on this cheat sheet, she's listed things like, what do I need to bring to doctor's appointments? And like, she'll bring it all. She brings in a weighted blanket. She brings in some lavender. She brings in some essential oil. She brings in headphones. She's speaking specifically about the dentist, but she has kind of protocols for each type of, doctor. But like, do your thing, right? Bring your things in that will give you some grounding and comfort. She's created a little bit of a script for when she's meeting a new practitioner. Some people like to just even do that in writing, like, here's my little card that tells you about me and what I need and what's important and how for us to communicate. Some people are okay having those conversations verbally, but ultimately it really is about self-advocating. And I know that can be challenging. We know that can be hard, but at the end of the day, it's the only thing that ultimately really matters is, are you asking for what you need? Are you creating the safe space that you need during an appointment to feel relaxed and connected and supported?
The problem is, because I agree in everything you said, the problem is everybody's busy. And the doctors, the mental health people, they don't have the time to sit and read it all, or to really, and that's a problem.
It's a huge problem. Yeah.
Because it's really not helping anybody. So it is something that, and then there are the waiting lists. You know, it's often when you are in the system, you feel like a number, and you feel like
it's being shuffled through.
I remember in Denmark, when before my bulimia treatment, I had a really wonderful doctor. He said to me, Ingrid, we need to get you into this treatment, but there's a waiting list. I want you to come here every week and talk to me. I was like, what? I mean, this is many years ago. But he took the time. He saw me as a person. And he took the time to sit and just while, because otherwise I don't know what I would have done in those months before I could actually get the treatment
into the program. I mean, it's true that I think particularly the medical profession, right, is set up with these like 15-minute, appointments these days. But to my mind, I mean, I've had to work at this, but I just say, well, you're going to have to just deal with me taking up more of your time. Like, I'm paying you. Right. And so I remember when I went to a new OBGYN and, you walk in, they're like, take your clothes off and sit down. I was like, I'm not taking my clothes off. I don't even know who's walking through this door. Right. And I said, I will stay dressed, send the doctor in. I'm going to have a conversation. And if I feel comfortable, then I will get undressed and put your stupid little paper. We'll do the damn thing. Right. And that's, the doctor walked in and she was a little surprised, right? Because she's used to just rolling on in and doing the thing. But I took about 20 minutes of her time and I just talked with her and explained like, this is what's so, and I'm not usually very easily triggered by these sorts of exams, but if I am, this is what I'm going to do. And just, and in some ways I'm also on a mission, right, for medical professionals to be more trauma informed. So I'm also a little soapboxing at that moment. Like, what do you know about this? Have you read about this? Do you research this? Are you trauma informed? Do you know what that means?
Oh, Rachel.
Because if you don't have good answers to those questions, like, you're not my person. I want somebody who cares about this aspect and this side of healing. Beautiful. Totally. I'm curious, in the work that you're doing with up and coming generations of those who are going into this field, any insights or anything you're noticing? Like, are they receptive? Are they curious? Are they engaged in it? Or does it feel like they're just checking a box? Like, what are you noticing in the trainings that you're doing?
So actually, what we just talked about, feeling comfortable and having the doctors be more, focused on, what else is going on in your life, and take it, seeing the person. That is why I went into the training. So since 2017, I've been teaching medical students at California North State University with the purpose to bring the awareness that when they come out as doctors, then if they have these patients come in with the same things, everything looks normal, that they could think about it could be trauma related, and to bring the awareness. So what I typically do is, in the beginning, it was over Skype. Once a month, I sat with students and they had to practice. They sit there with a professor and they have to practice to interview a patient. So I came up and I was like, okay, this is the stage. I am so and so old. I come to the doctor with stomach pain, anxiety, and then they try out, questioning me, and as if I was that patient. And I was that just many years ago. And then they have to figure out, okay, what could that be? And they sit there with the professor. If this was a real patient, now what would we do? And by the end, then I will share the rest of the story so they can see my story. And it's interesting. So my sister died in 2018, and I was still doing this. And, while I was grieving my sister, I was still doing this. But then the medical students, they sent me these handwritten notes. And they're like, Ingrid, we're so happy that you shared your story with us, and I will remember this when I'm out as a doctor, and sorry about your loss with your sister. But they were really, that kept me through, say, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it is important for them to know that, if they have a patient, it can be anything, it can be like, what to be aware of if they're, teenagers or, whatever it is. But just to have the thought and have my story in their minds that it could be, it's not just easy peasy, there could be other things. And it's so amazing. It's volunteer work. I do it. I've done it since 2017. I love it. And
gosh, that's
it's
amazing.
really, it lifts me up every time. And every time it's different. We go different routes because these are different students, and depending on where they are on their journey. And so I love that job.
I'm feeling emotional as you're sharing that story. First of all, just processing with you the loss of your sister. And as you're sharing the conversations that you're having, I'm wondering, I'm like, gosh, it's not trauma-informed medical professionals, it's human-informed. That's like, we just lost the humanity.
Yeah.
That industry has become so politicized. It's become so commercial. It's become so about the money and these sorts of things. So I love that you're sitting down with these up and comers and reminding them that this is a human profession, first and foremost.
It's a win-win. I mean, for them, it's
that.
also fun to have like a real patient to ask. And I'm very open about, whatever has been going on. But also for me, it's like, okay, it keeps me going. Say, this is a reminder. This is why I do what I'm doing.
Right.
So yeah, it's a big purpose. Yeah.
Beautiful. Tell us a little bit about your book, Unmasked. What can people expect to experience? Yes, hold it up more. No. Bring it, put it, show it. You worked hard on that, and the cover, and the back and the forth, and the font, all of it. So yes, people, you can get Ingrid's book, Unmasked, on Amazon. I will be sure to include a link here in our show notes. But yeah, tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah. So it's funny because I never saw myself as becoming an author. I'm not one of those people who say, oh, I want to become an author. I never saw that coming. But when I went through my things and I started my business, I knew it could be actually a good thing to share my story with others. But every time I started writing, my dystonia came back and I got sick. So I knew I wasn't ready for that.
Wow, yeah.
And then when my sister died in 2018, my therapist at that time, she said, Ingrid, now it's the time, right? So I wrote my whole journey. I wrote everything down. And that was so therapeutical. It was really getting it all out. So then I sent that manuscript into the editor. But by doing that, I realized, you know what? This is not the book that I feel comfortable publishing. This was for me. So I took a 6 months course where I really dived into, why do I want to write a book? What is the message of the book? So this book is not about what happened to me. It's about what did trauma do to me? And the journey through the system and journey how I, got out of all of it and created my own life as it is today.
Cheers to that. Yes, mama. I'm stoked about that. I love the book. I wrote a little blib for it because I really think it's so important for stories like yours to be out there. It's a source of inspiration and information. And I thank you for your deep vulnerability in the book. So y'all go out, get a copy. Also, you can connect with Ingrid over at her website, Abild-Pedersencoaching.com. I'll include a link there as well. So as we're wrapping up today, just final thoughts. What would you most want listeners to walk away with from today's conversation, or to just know?
Hope. There is hope. If you are stuck somewhere now in the mental health or medical system or in old pain, there is hope. You don't have to be there. You have a choice. Every day we have a choice. And life is beautiful. So hope. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Ingrid, so much for being here today. So had a great time connecting with you and chatting.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel, and giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And for all of you listening, thank you for tuning in and joining us today. As always, if you'd like to make a donation in support of the podcast, just pop over to bit.ly/Beyond Surviving Podcast Donation. And then head on over to rachelgrantcoaching.com to learn more about sexual abuse recovery coaching, to explore the other resources available on the site. And please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and then come back next time, because we have so much more to share. And until then, take good care of you.